It happened at Sunday dinner. My brother looked across the table, smiled that knowing smile, and said it. She's still figuring it out. Everyone nodded. My mom, my dad, even my aunt, like it was just a fact, something everyone had agreed on long ago. I didn't say anything. I never did. But someone else was watching, someone who wasn't part of the script, and what she noticed that night changed everything. My name is Rachel, and this is how I stopped being invisible. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. My brother Jason has always been the golden child. Straight A's, law degree, corner office. The kind of son parents brag about at barbecues. The kind of son who makes other parents jealous. The kind who gets his picture on the mantle in the good frame. I was the other one, the quieter one, the one who took a different path. I didn't finish college the traditional way. I dropped out junior year. Not because I was failing, not because I couldn't handle it, but because I saw an opportunity. A startup needed someone who understood logistics. They offered me a contract, I took it. My parents didn't understand. Jason definitely didn't understand. He stayed in school, did everything right, graduated with honors, went straight to law school, followed the path everyone could see and celebrate. I freelanced. I switched careers. I tried things that didn't work out. I tried things that did work out but looked messy from the outside. And somewhere along the way, my family stopped asking what I was doing and started deciding for me. Still figuring it out became my title. Not my name, not Rachel, just the girl who hadn't landed yet, the one who was always one step behind, the one who couldn't quite get it together. It wasn't said with cruelty. It was worse than that. It was said with pity, with patience, with this gentle, condescending kindness that made me feel smaller every time I heard it. At family dinners, Jason would talk about his cases, his promotions, his investments, and when it was my turn, someone would smile softly and say, "And Rachel's doing her thing." That was it, my thing. Undefined, unimpressive, unfinished. I learned not to correct them. What was the point? They had already made up their minds. It wasn't always like this. When I was younger, I used to try. I'd tell them about the clients I landed, the projects I completed, the systems I built. But Jason's voice was louder, his wins were shinier, and slowly, mine stopped being mentioned at all. I remember one Thanksgiving. I had just closed a deal with a mid-sized company, a contract that would keep me comfortable for 6 months. Good money, real money. I was proud. I told my dad while we were setting the table. He smiled, patted my shoulder. "That's great, sweetheart. You're getting there." Getting there, like I hadn't already arrived. Like 6 months of financial security was just a stepping stone to something real. Then Jason walked in and mentioned a bonus. Just a bonus, not even a promotion, not a new client, just extra money his firm gave him for a case he worked on. And the whole room lit up. Champagne was opened, glasses were raised. My dad called my uncle to tell him. My deal was forgotten before dessert. It became a pattern. Jason's accomplishments were victories. Mine were steps. His career was a journey with milestones. Mine was a phase I'd eventually grow out of. And I started to believe it. Maybe I was still figuring it out. Maybe I hadn't made it. Maybe I never would. I stopped bringing things up, stopped mentioning wins, because every time I did, I could see it in their faces. That polite interest, that patient smile, that look that said, "That's nice, honey, but let's talk about something real." There was one moment that really stuck with me. My mom and I were having coffee, just the two of us. She asked how work was going. I told her I had just finished a project, helped a company reduce waste in their supply chain, saved them over $200,000 in the first quarter alone. She nodded, sipped her coffee, then she said, "That's wonderful, but have you thought about going back to school, getting a real degree? Jason could probably help you with recommendations." A real degree, like the work I was doing wasn't real, like the results didn't matter because I didn't have the right piece of paper on my wall. I didn't argue. I just smiled, changed the subject, let it go. But someone else saw something different. Her name was Claire, Jason's girlfriend. She had been around for a few months, polite, observant, quiet in that way that makes people think you're not paying attention, but she was. She didn't talk much at these dinners, but she listened, and that night she was listening very carefully. Before dinner was served, my mom pulled me aside into the kitchen, not dramatically, casually, like it was a favor, like she was doing me a kindness. She was arranging the salad, I was filling water glasses, and then she said it. "Honey, are you okay financially?" I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I just want to make sure you're doing okay. I know freelancing can be unpredictable. If you need help, we're here. Jason and Claire are doing really well. I'm sure they wouldn't mind helping out if something came up." She said it quietly, almost like a secret, like my instability was something to be embarrassed about, something we needed to hide. I told her I was fine, that I didn't need help, that I was doing well, actually. She smiled, relieved. "Good. I just didn't want you feeling uncomfortable around everyone tonight. I know Claire's got that great job and Jason's doing so well. I didn't want you to feel, out of place." Out of place. In my own family. At my own family's dinner table. That was when I realized they weren't worried about me failing. They were worried about me being seen failing, about what it would look like if Jason's successful girlfriend saw his struggling sister, if Claire went home and told her friends about Jason's family and mentioned the sister who couldn't get it together. It wasn't about helping me, it was about protecting their image, their story, the one where Jason was thriving and I was still figuring it out. I walked back to the table with a smile on my face, the same smile I always wore, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I wasn't ashamed. I was tired, exhausted really, of managing their discomfort with my existence. We were halfway through dinner when it happened again. Jason was talking about a case he won, a big one, some corporate dispute that went to mediation. He was confident, animated, using his hands to describe the arguments he made. Everyone was hanging on his words. My dad was nodding like he understood every legal term. My mom was beaming. My aunt kept saying, "That's incredible." Then he turned to me. That smile again, the one that looked friendly but felt like a spotlight. Rachel's still doing freelance stuff, still figuring it out. There was light laughter. Not mean, just comfortable, familiar. The kind of laughter that happens when everyone's in on the same joke. My mom nodded. My dad chuckled. Even my aunt added, "She'll find her thing eventually. Everyone moves at their own pace." I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words didn't come. They never did. Not here, not at this table. Jason leaned back in his chair like he was relaxed, took a sip of wine. Then he laughed and said, "Hey, at least Rachel gets to work in sweatpants. I'm stuck in a suit every day." Everyone laughed again, louder this time. My dad said, "That's the dream, isn't it? Work from home, set your own hours." Jason grinned. "Yeah, but someone's got to pay the bills." More laughter. I smiled, the polite kind, the kind women learn early, the kind that says, "I'm in on the joke even when the joke is me," the kind that keeps the peace, the kind that doesn't make waves. But Claire didn't laugh this time. She looked around the table instead, like she was trying to understand why this was funny, why everyone was so comfortable with it. Her expression changed, not dramatic, just a flicker of confusion, of discomfort. She glanced at me, then at Jason, then back at me. I looked down at my plate, took a breath, cut into my chicken, let it pass, like I always did. But when I glanced up, Claire wasn't smiling anymore. She was staring at me, not with pity, with something else, curiosity. Recognition almost, like she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see. She tilted her head slightly, like she was trying to solve a puzzle, like the pieces weren't fitting the way they should. Jason didn't notice. He kept talking, moved on to another story about a partner at his firm. But Claire had stopped listening to him. Her focus had shifted, and I could feel it, the weight of her attention, the questions forming behind her eyes. Then she asked, "Rachel, what kind of freelance work do you do?" The table went quiet for a second. Not awkward, just surprised. No one ever asked me that. Not directly. Not like they actually wanted to know. Usually people asked Jason to explain what I did, like I wasn't capable of answering for myself. I hesitated. Consulting, operations, process optimization. I kept it short. I always kept it short. Vague enough to sound unimpressive, simple enough to let people move on. But Claire didn't move on. She leaned forward, set down her fork. Operations for who? Like small businesses or... My mom jumped in before I could answer. Oh, she works with different people. It's very flexible. She gets to pick her clients. Translation, unstable, unpredictable, not a real career. Jason added, she's done a little bit of everything, keeps her options open, hasn't really specialized yet. Translation, unfocused, uncommitted, still trying to figure out what she wants to be when she grows up. My eyes stayed on me. She didn't look at Jason, didn't look at my mom, just me. What was your last project? I could feel the room shifting. My dad cleared his throat, Jason reached for his drink, my mom started collecting empty plates, even though people were still eating. But Claire wasn't letting it go. She was waiting, patient, genuinely curious. I worked with a logistics company, I said quietly, restructured their workflow, reduced bottlenecks in their distribution process, cut operational costs by 30% in the first quarter. Claire blinked. 30%? I nodded. In 1 quarter? I nodded again. She sat back, and I saw it, the moment she realized something didn't match, the moment the story she'd been hearing about me didn't line up with what I'd just said. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Jason, then at my parents, like she was waiting for someone to explain, to fill in the gap. But no one said anything. She said, "Wait, didn't you?" Then she stopped herself, shook her head slightly, like she was second-guessing what she was about to say. Jason jumped in immediately. "She's very private," he said quickly. "Doesn't like attention, doesn't really talk about her work much." My mom nodded. "She's always been like that, keeps to herself." Claire nodded slowly, but she wasn't convinced. I could see it in her face, the way her jaw tightened, the way her eyes narrowed just slightly. She picked at her food, quiet now, thinking, processing. I thought that was it. I thought I'd imagined the shift. I thought maybe she'd forget about it, move on, let it go like everyone else always did, let the family narrative smooth over the cracks. I didn't know she was already checking something on her phone under the table. She didn't say anything right away, but I could see her mind working, the gears turning. She was quiet for the rest of the main course, responded when spoken to but didn't initiate conversation. Her phone was in her lap. I saw her thumb moving, scrolling. A few minutes later, during dessert, she stopped. Her face changed. The color drained slightly. Her eyes went wide, just for a second. Then she controlled it, looked at me, then at Jason, then back at me. "Rachel Carter?" she asked slowly. I nodded. She turned her phone toward me. It was an article, one I'd been quoted in 6 months ago, about supply chain efficiency in mid-sized companies, about how small changes could lead to massive cost reductions. My name, my photo, my words. "You wrote this?" I didn't write it, I was interviewed for it, but I nodded. I was quoted in it. She scrolled down. There was another article, and another. Industry journals, business magazines. My name kept appearing. Jason laughed when she said Forbes, actually laughed. "That can't be her," he said. Like it was absurd. Like the idea of me being in Forbes was a joke in itself. Like it was impossible. My mom leaned in, squinted at the phone. "There must be another Rachel Carter. It's a common name." My aunt nodded. "There are probably hundreds of Rachel Carters." Claire didn't argue. She didn't defend me. She just zoomed in on the photo, the headshot I'd had taken last year. Professional, clean, unmistakably me. She held the phone up next to my face. "Same face," she said quietly. No one laughed after that. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable, the kind that presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. My dad shifted in his seat. My aunt looked down at her dessert. Jason stared at the phone like it had personally betrayed him. My mom reached for the phone. Claire handed it to her. My mom scrolled, read. Her lips moved slightly as she scanned the text. Then she looked at me. Really looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. "When did this happen?" "Last year." "Why didn't you say anything?" My dad finally asked the question everyone was thinking. "Why didn't you tell us?" I told him the truth, the simple, honest truth I'd been holding on to for years. Because every time I tried, you told me I was getting there. You told me to keep trying, to hang in there, to not give up, like I hadn't already arrived, like what I was doing didn't count. My mom opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't know what to say, because it was true. And everyone at that table knew it. Every single person sitting there had dismissed me, had patted me on the head and told me to keep going, had treated my work like a hobby, like something I'd grow out of. Jason set down his fork. "You could have corrected us." "I did. You didn't listen." He didn't have a response to that. Claire handed me back my phone. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. The damage was done. Not to me, to the story they'd been telling themselves about me for years. The story where Jason was the successful one and I was the project, the work in progress, the one who still needed guidance. That story was gone now, and they didn't know how to replace it. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I didn't list my accomplishments or prove my worth. I didn't need to. The phone had done that for me. I finished my dessert, took my time, let the silence settle, let them sit in it. Then I stood up, collected my plate, brought it to the kitchen, came back for my glass. My mom said, "Rachel, wait." I didn't wait. I thanked her for dinner, kissed her on the cheek, the same way I always did, like nothing had changed, because for me, nothing had. I'd known who I was this whole time. They were the ones who needed to catch up. I said goodbye to everyone, polite, calm. My aunt hugged me, whispered, "I'm proud of you." I almost laughed. Now she was proud. Now that there was proof. Now that someone else had validated what I'd been doing all along. I walked to my car, got in, closed the door, sat there for a moment in the quiet, and I felt it. Relief. Not anger, not vindication, just relief, like I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. Jason called the next day. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, said we should talk, said there was a misunderstanding. I deleted it. My mom texted, "Can we talk about last night?" I replied with a simple, "I'm good." She texted back, "I think there are some things we need to clear up." I didn't respond. They wanted to talk, to smooth it over, to rewrite the story, to explain that they didn't mean it that way, that I misunderstood, that they were always proud of me. But I was done performing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just free. Free from the need to prove myself. Free from the weight of their expectations. Free from the version of me they'd created. There was no apology. Not a real one. Not the kind that acknowledges harm and takes responsibility. Just vague comments like, "We didn't know and you should have told us." But I had told them, multiple times, in multiple ways. They just hadn't listened. My mom called a week later, asked if I wanted to come over for coffee, just us. I went, not because I needed closure, but because I was curious. She made coffee the way she always did. Too strong, too bitter. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she'd asked if I needed financial help. She didn't apologize. She said, "I wish you'd been more open with us." I almost laughed. I was open, you just didn't want to hear it. She looked hurt. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" She didn't answer. She stirred her coffee, added more sugar. Then she said, "Jason feels terrible." "Does he?" "He didn't know." "He didn't ask." She sighed. "You're being very hard on him." And there it was, the thing I'd been waiting for. The defense, the redirect, the way she'd protect Jason even now, even after everything. I finished my coffee, stood up. I'm not being hard on him. I'm just not making it easy anymore. The weirdest part wasn't the dinner. It wasn't even that conversation. It was the weeks after, the slow, awkward shift in the way they treated me. No one mentioned it again, not directly. Like if they didn't say it out loud, it never happened. Like they could pretend that night didn't exist and everything would go back to normal. But it didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. Jason stopped joking about my work, completely. He didn't mention it at all. At the next family dinner, he talked about his cases, his firm, his life. And when someone asked about me, he just said, "Rachel's doing great." That was it. No details, no commentary, no jokes, just a simple statement and a quick change of subject. My mom started asking vague questions she didn't want real answers to. "How's everything going?" she'd say. Not because she cared, but because she was trying to figure out what else she'd missed, what other version of me existed that she'd never bothered to see. My dad tried to connect, sent me articles about business trends, about consulting, like he was trying to prove he understood, like he was trying to catch up on years of not paying attention. I appreciated the effort, but it felt hollow, like he was checking a box. And I realized something important, something that changed the way I saw all of it. They didn't underestimate me because they didn't know. They underestimated me because it made them comfortable. It was easier to see me as the one still figuring it out, the one who needed patience, the one who hadn't quite made it yet. Because if I had made it, if I had been successful this whole time, then what did that say about them, about the way they treated me, about the assumptions they made, about the years they spent dismissing my work and diminishing my accomplishments? It meant they were wrong, and being wrong about something that fundamental, about someone that close, is uncomfortable. It's easier to keep the story the same, to keep me small, to keep me striving, because then they got to be the ones with answers, the ones with wisdom, the ones who knew better. But I didn't fit that story anymore, and they didn't know what to do with me. I kept working, kept building, kept moving forward, not for them, for me. I took on bigger clients, expanded my consulting, started speaking at conferences, not to prove anything, just because I was good at what I did, and I wanted to keep getting better. Jason still talks about his wins. My parents still brag about him, and I'm fine with that, because I don't need to be the loudest voice in the room to know my worth. I don't need to be the favorite to be successful. I don't need their validation to know I've made it. I made it a long time ago. They just weren't paying attention. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been the one counted out, if you've ever stayed quiet while others spoke for you, you're not alone. And you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your work speaks, your results speak, and the right people will see it. The wrong people will keep telling you you're still figuring it out. Let them. You don't need their permission to succeed. You never did. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.